I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We have Melvin joining us today, and Adam is with us also. So Tom, would you like to start this off?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Melvin, and Melvin's a fellow Oregonian. And more importantly, he has some very interesting encounters, and some of them are fairly recent. So I'm going to bring him on. And Melvin, we got kind of a little bit of a rundown. What I'm going to do is I'll just go through these, and then the one I'm going to start off with is Scott Mills. I think Scott Mills and Butte Creek Falls, are those one and the same or two different encounters?
They're one and the same.
Okay, so let's start off with Scott Mills, if that's okay with you. And leave no details out. What happened? What's going on?
This was about 30 years ago when I was about 15 or 16. About September, I was out deer hunting with my eldest brother, my youngest brother, my nephew, and my brother-in-law. We had pulled off one of the roads up there onto one of the landings, and this right next to this landing, about 20 yards off down the side, is a gully that runs up the side of a hill, and we frequently stop there because we've seen deer in there before. And this time we dropped over the side like we usually do off the landing, and after looking through the gully for a little while, we started tossing a few rocks out into it, see if we could maybe get something to stir down in there. And above the landing where we were at, about 200 yards up the hill, there's this ridge line that still has trees on it, old growths and that type of stuff. We started hearing some snapping sticks up there, like something was moving around. At first, they sounded kind of small, and kind of infrequent. And then after we were there for a little while, they became more frequent, and they became louder, like larger sticks and branches were being broken and stuff. When it first started, I whispered over to the rest of my party that I heard something up there, and they said it might have been an elk or something up there. And then as it became more and more frequent, I said there's definitely something up there. And we'd walked back up onto the landing, and that's when the larger sticks started being broken. From the sound they were making 200 yards up that ridge, it sounded like they were like wrist-sized branches and stuff being snapped. And there'd be one every 30, 40 seconds like that. So we
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's significant.
It may have been around a minute or maybe a little longer sometimes. But I used my binoculars to look up there along the tree line, it was there were some like smaller trees in the front, and you really couldn't see through them. And I didn't see anything moving or anything up there, but you still hear something moving up there and snapping those sticks. And I just started to get really nervous because I knew there was something up there, and I had no idea what it was, but I figured it had to be big to be snapping sticks the size it was doing. And I got so nervous that I actually put a round in the chamber of my rifle. And I told him there's definitely something that's up there, and it's big. And about that time, I picked up it wasn't a strong smell, but I picked up like a musky scent on the air. And I started looking around to see if I could see what was making that scent. And about that time, my brother said, "Let's go." And we all got back in the vehicle after I unloaded my rifle, and we left. And that's about it.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, you've elk hunted before, and we talked about this. It's pretty unusual for elk to come towards you, breaking things, especially something the size of these branches. And the musky smell, did it smell like, because elk have their own, they got their own musky smell. But as we've talked about, is an odor that is very foul, and it's not associated with elk. What kind of an odor was this that you smelled?
Well, I've smelled elk, I've smelled buck deer, and this was definitely not either of those. It was definitely stronger and more pungent. But it was still faint. I could tell it was still ways away from me, but it was just enough I could pick it up that it was a really strong, pungent smell.
How were you feeling at the time?
I was really nervous.
Yeah, I've yet to go elk hunting and have him stalk me.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew there was something big up there, and I didn't think it was an elk or a bear because they're usually quiet when they're walking through the forest and stuff, and this definitely wasn't quiet, snapping those limbs like it was.
Okay. And you mentioned you had some other people in your group. Did anybody else hear the snapping or detect the odor or anything like that?
We all heard the snapping. If I recall right, my younger brother, he picked up the musky smell as well. He was about 13. But I don't think that any of the others picked it up because they were smokers. So.
Well, I'm just curious, when you got back in the vehicle, did y'all have any discussion as to what you thought it might have been?
Not at that time. I don't really know why. I talked to my younger brother years later about it. He says he can remember some of it, but not all of it. And I've tried talking to my older brother about it, but he's kind of closed off. He says he don't really remember it or anything like that.
Well, I'm just wondering I guess that if you felt apprehensive about the situation and got into the vehicle, a lot of times I know men just don't want to discuss that they might actually be fearful of what was going on. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I think that was kind of part of it.
I still just find it interesting, though. This is something I bring up with people from time to time. I have yet to go, I said it once, I'll say it again, I've yet to go elk hunting or deer hunting and have the prey come and stalk the predator, the one with the rifle.
Yeah, that was really unusual.
Well, who knows? They probably knew what you're doing, and maybe they're just licking their lips and hoping you're going to get some food for them. I don't know. Well, that was interesting, and that was, gosh, it's been a while. So I think I'm going to hand the mic to you, but I think the next spot was this was Scott Mills. What about Camp Sherman?
Yeah, that experience happened in 2001. It was the last week of August, first part of September. We went over to the Camp Sherman area to do bow hunting for elk and deer. We spent 7 days there in a camp trailer, and we had our camp trailer in a primitive campground off one of the creeks over there. And behind the trailer, there was this small clearing about 50 yards or so wide and about 100 yards long. And there was 5 of us on that trip. There was myself, my eldest brother and his wife, my second eldest brother, and my youngest brother. And my eldest brother and sister-in-law were sleeping in the back in the bedroom area, and my other 3 brothers and 2 brothers and myself were sleeping up in the front area. And I had the bed right next to one of the windows, and I had the window, it was a tilt window. I had it opened to get airflow in there, and had the blind pulled up some because I was watching out there in that clearing because we'd seen deer and coyotes out there sometimes. It was fairly bright, enough that I could see what was out there, distinguish what it was. And I ended up falling asleep up on my elbow. And the experience was really confusing to me because I take medications to help me sleep, and I was kind of groggy, and also I have a history of waking nightmares since I was a child. So it was really confusing for me and hard to process. But about 12:30, 1 o'clock, I woke up still propped up on my elbow, and I looked out the window and I seen this pair of brown amber eyes looking in the window at me.
How close were they? I mean, they're right there looking right at the window?
Yeah, its nose was like almost pressed up to where the window, the slanted window was. And it was probably maybe 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet from my face to the thing's face. And
Wow.
it had brown amber eyes. I could not see any whites of the eyes. The eyes were probably about 6 inches apart. It had like worn black leather wrinkly kind of around its eyes. It had a really stout brow, and the nose, it was kind of gorilla-like, but not really. And it was kind of a shiny black. And I remember seeing it, and then it made like this blowing sound, sort of like a horse does whenever it comes up from a drink at a trough. And I felt this liquid hit me in the face, across my lips on the left side of my face, and a really stout burst of air hit up into my eyes. And I ended up closing my eyes, frantically wiping away the liquid on my face. And whenever I looked back out the window, I could not see anything there. I sat up, opened the blinds more, and I looked as far as I could to the right and to the left and out into that clearing, and I didn't see anything out there. And at that point, I questioned what I was seeing, if it was really real. And it took me a long time in processing it to actually come to the realization that what I saw was real, because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing at that point. But there was a lot of differences from my past experiences with my nightmares and what actually occurred that night.
Well, I guess what comes to mind is we've all had nightmares, but I've yet to have a nightmare where you have to wipe the stuff off your face. I mean, that's like gross amongst everything else.
Yeah.
You actually felt the wet spittle on your face?
Yeah. After I looked out the window, I actually checked my face again, and it was dry. So that was another confusing part. And I'm not sure if it was just a light mist or something that hit me in the face. And I was able to get it all off to where it dried in that amount of time. It was kind of warm that year.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there, but I'm just thinking, if you felt spittle on your face and you had to wipe it off, that's physical. There's something there. And Forrest had an experience where it wasn't quite, it was a little more dramatic than that, but and then when we talked yesterday, as a follow-up, kind of in the same day, same night, same time frame, I think your brother also had an experience in the camp trailer. Am I correct? Or
yeah, later that day, I talked to my younger brother about it and asked him if he'd seen anything or heard anything around that time, and he said no, but that my eldest brother, who was in the back of the trailer, had been asleep with his wife, and they had the main door open and the screen door closed, and had heard something swat the screen door, and it woke him up. And whenever I talked to my elder brother about it, he said it did occur about 2:00 that morning. And he got up and he looked around with his flashlight and stuff. He didn't see anything. And so he just closed the door and went back to bed.
Okay, so let me recap for a second. So you get the thing spits on you, it huffs, and it exhales, something on your face. Sometime later, your brother hears like a slap. I'm just going to jump in real quick. Will, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Have we ever heard of people having their cabins or their campers slapped before.
Yeah, a time or two.
And we've concluded maybe they're doing a spot check or something.
What did I understand now? When you say he closed the door, did he close the actual camper door, or did this thing when it swatted the screen door? Did the screen door pop open?
No, the screen door wasn't damaged or anything. After my brother looked around with a flashlight, he closed the main solid door of the camper.
Okay. Yeah, what Tom's referring to, I actually had a encounter with one, and all I had was it was actually shaking my air conditioner, and that's what woke me up. That and the cats growling and hissing, and it's rather a frightening experience when you realize that there's just a pane of glass. And in your case, was there a screen or anything on that window?
Yeah, there was a screen.
Yeah, that's rather frightening to realize that that's all you have between you and, something like that. Now, primates do make a noise sometimes, and it's kind of like a huff. And I could see where when they do that they could actually, spit on you. And, I don't know of any waking nightmares, Tom or Will, that you actually have physical things happen to you.
Right, exactly. Physical, yeah, spit on the face. I mean, that's not only is it tangible, but let's just be honest. It's kind of gross.
Well, here's the thing too. I mean, this when he checked himself again, I mean, you probably wouldn't get a lot on you. So if you wipe it off, and you might do it out of reflex and not even think about doing it. So when you check a second time, it might be gone, and then you might question yourself, because that's kind of a traumatic situation, especially being that close to one of these things.
Yeah, and Melvin,
this is Chuck. I got a question for you.
Okay.
Your first encounter, your first sighting. Sorry about that. What was the atmospheric temperature, or just give me some kind of idea? And was there snow on the ground or anything like that on with your first sighting or your first encounter?
There was no snow. It'd been raining a little bit, but it wasn't soaking wet. It was kind of chilly, probably 50 to 60 degrees. Cloudy, I believe.
What about the second encounter?
The second one, it was dry. We hadn't had any rain over there. It was kind of warm, probably. During the day, it was 90 degrees, and at night, about around the time that I woke up, it was probably 65 to 70 degrees.
And you mentioned that you thought maybe the thing had been drinking in the creek, or maybe some of that spittle had come from. It was drinking or something like that out of the nearby creek.
Yeah, right on the other side of the clearing, it drops down about 5 yards into a creek. And after thinking about it for a while and feeling that it was cold when it hit me in the face, and I thought maybe it had been drinking down there in that creek, because I know that creek is really, really cold. It's some of the coldest water I've ever seen. As soon as you put your hand in it, even at 100-degree weather, your hand almost instantly hurts from the cold. So it might have been drinking in that creek down there, because I was trying to figure out why it felt cold when it hit me, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. And here's the thing. For those who don't know, that part of Oregon, there's a lot of underground aquifers where the water springs up. It actually goes down, very deep into the lava. It doesn't get any sunshine, and then it pops up out of these springs, and those springs are just 36, 40 degrees. They're very, very chilly. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, they're all over. There's probably 75, 80 springs just in that little valley there.
Adam,
I wanted to say that.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to say that when it made that huffing or blowing out sound, to me it sounded like something trying to get rid of a bad odor in its nose or something. And it was just a deep sound, like from something big.
Adam, we haven't heard from you yet. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my thought was kind of back to the first incident where the sticks were breaking in the distance, and then there seemed to be an escalation and the sticks breaking, but the creatures didn't, they didn't show themselves, but they knew they were making themselves. I'm assuming they knew they were making themselves heard, and I wanted to bounce that off Forrest and see if there's any similar behavior in primates that you're aware of, where maybe they stay hidden but they make a lot of noise.
Well, I don't know about the hidden part, but chimpanzees, I mean, usually when they're hidden, they just don't make any noise. But chimpanzees will, and gorillas to some extent, not as much, but chimpanzees are the more aggressive of primates, it seems. And they will break sticks, beat sticks on trees, and run around in the forest making a lot of noise. And it's usually when what I've seen, that when I've seen that happen, it's usually when two groups come into the same area. They don't necessarily want to get into a conflict, but by making a lot of noise and stuff, it will usually get one group or the other just to decide to move off. And, and I think that's may have been what these guys were trying to achieve too. We'll make enough noise that will make them feel uncomfortable, and they'll just get the heck out of the area. And that's what they accomplished, evidently.
That was kind of that's certainly what they accomplished. I just wondered if there was an analog with, other, and it makes perfect sense with chimps.
Yeah, that's the only thing I've seen with chimps that they do. And and this is something we discussed before, that I think that of all the behaviors that I've seen, that chimps seem to correspond. Chimp behavior seems to correspond a lot more to Bigfoot than any other primates. There's some gorilla activity that's comparable to Bigfoot, but not near as much as what you see with chimpanzees.
Fascinating and scary,
Yes.
And don't forget gross.
And we got gross.
We got that one covered. So Melvin, I think you had another situation where you were at Bear Springs, and I think that's another one of those dispersed camping areas. And it's the one that I find really fascinating. We hear a lot from guests that are witnesses. You had an a real overwhelming sense of dread, just comes out of nowhere. What can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, there's a primitive campsite down a small road off one of the main roads over there, and my brothers and I went down there, and excuse me, we got out to stretch our legs, and as soon as I fully got out of the vehicle, I just felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and like someone had just walked over my grave. And then I just started getting this feeling that I just needed to get out of there. There was something there that definitely did not want me there, and I just needed to leave. So I looked around nervously. Apparently my brothers didn't feel it because they were off a little ways, just kind of wandering around. But the feeling just kept getting stronger and stronger for me, to where I just had to get back in the vehicle. And it was just a feeling that I just needed to get out of there.
What
was
have
the
you had that
location
feeling
like?
before? Oh, go ahead, Adam.
I just want, what was the location like? Was it, heavy brush nearby, or what? I'm wondering where this thing could be hiding.
It was ponderosa pine.
Uh-huh.
Out further, it was like second growth fir trees. In around there was some alders, manzanita brush, some very other brushes. Some of the grass was about 3 feet tall in places. You really couldn't see once you got outside the campsite. Well, I should say, if you're standing in the campsite, you really can't see more than 2 or 3 feet out into the brush on the sides.
Wow.
But Adam, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was wondering, what the surrounding terrain was like. So it's that sort of, you get on the eastern side of the Cascades, it's, for those who don't know, it becomes more like ponderosas, almost like what you see on, if people remember the old show Bonanza, that sort of thing, as opposed to the thick brush. So have you had that feeling before or since, that very specific sense of dread and got to get out of here?
I've only had it once before. That was when I was hunting probably about 25 years ago. I was sitting on a stump, rifle hunting, waiting, kind of watching this small clearing for some deer, and I just had this feeling come over me, about the same. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I just felt there was something there, and I was in danger. And I ended up swinging around, and about 20 yards crouched down in the brush behind me was a full-grown mountain lion looking at me.
Wow.
And,
Okay, now that's a different encounter. Okay. I've often wondered about that. That's got to be a hungry mountain lion if he's projecting those vibes, and the prey is like, oh, need to get out of here.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess the thought that comes to my head, I have no idea what it is, but I wonder what biomechanism is embedded inside of us that alerts us to these sorts of like premonitions of danger.
Yeah.
It's
And
speculation. I have no idea, but
I think it's just kind of a holdover from our primitive self.
I
Yeah.
think you're exactly right. I think
Well,
it's a
listen,
sense
Melvin.
that we all have, but we just don't use it very often.
Well, I often feel like I use it less than anybody else because I'm the worst of the worst. I've only had that feeling one time, and it wasn't that strong. So, Melvin, I got to thank you. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and very interesting encounters. So, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you,
And if
Melvin.
anything else, yeah, we'll have to have you back on if anything else occurs.
Thank you, guys. Appreciated talking with you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.